Mo3's homie Rainwater has just revealed why TrapBoy Freddy is now sitting on the stand as a state witness in one of the most closely watched trials in Dallas rap history. And what he said about the prosecution's strategy changes everything you thought you knew about this case. We are talking about a strategy that goes far beyond a single incident, one that involves multiple witnesses, a detailed timeline of escalating beef, and a courtroom presentation designed to show the jury the full picture of what led to that highway shooting in November 2020. Stay locked in, because the full story behind why TrapBoy Freddy is taking that stand reveals far more than what is being discussed on the surface. But real quick, if you're serious about winning in the rap game, I put everything I know into one ebook. I'm talking how to actually grow an audience from zero, how to get labels reaching out to you with deals, and even how to get paid in this industry without ever touching a mic. And nah, it's not too late. People love to say the wave passed. It didn't. New artists and new hustlers are blowing up every single day, and the ones eating are the ones who started now instead of waiting. It's only $39. That's a few cups of coffee for a blueprint that can change how you move in this game forever. Links in the description bio. Go grab it. Then let's get back to the video. Yo, what's good, fam? Today we are going to break down exactly who Rainwater is, why TrapBoy Freddy ended up on that state witness list, and what his testimony is actually designed to do inside that courtroom. Let's get into it. Now, before we get into the heart of what Rainwater revealed, you need to understand the full picture of what is actually happening in that courthouse, because a lot of people following this story are missing crucial context. We are talking about the capital murder for hire trial of Yella Beezy, one of Dallas's most prominent rap figures, who is accused of ordering the hit that took Mo3's life on the Dallas highway in November of 2020. Let that land for a second. This is not a standard homicide case. Capital murder for hire means the state is alleging that Yella Beezy did not just want Mo3 dead. They are alleging he paid for it, that he commissioned the killing. And in Texas, that charge carries consequences that could take the rest of a man's life. The trial is unfolding in Dallas, the same city where both of these artists built their careers, the same streets where their conflict developed over years before it culminated in the shooting that ended Mo3's life. Everything that happened between these two camps, every confrontation, every retaliatory move, every piece of music that touched on the beef, is now being reconstructed inside a courtroom. And two witnesses in particular are at the center of how the prosecution is telling that story: Brandon Rainwater and TrapBoy Freddy. Now, for people who have not been keeping up, let me break down for y'all exactly what the Yella Beezy capital murder for hire trial actually is. Before we go any further, Yella Beezy, born Marquise Conway, is a Dallas-based rapper who had built a significant following in the Texas hip-hop scene over the years. He and Mo3 were both prominent voices in that world, but the relationship between their camps had been deteriorating long before the night Mo3 was killed. The state's position is that Yella Beezy did not just have conflict with Mo3. They are alleging he orchestrated a paid killing, that he arranged for Mo3 to be shot and killed on a Dallas highway in November of 2020.
A Dallas rapper was murdered outside of his car on I-35 near the Dallas Zoo. Hello, I'm Steve Eager.
And I'm Heather Hayes. It is a stark example of the city's struggle to control violent crime. Police say the victim, a hip-hop musician named Mo3, was approached by the killer on I-35. Both men stopped their vehicles. The victim got out, took off, started running, but was shot several times on the highway. A bystander inside another vehicle was also hit.
And they are building that case through a combination of physical evidence, documented incidents, the testimony of witnesses who were inside the conflict, and music that prosecutors believe reflects criminal intent. The case has been making its way through the legal system since Mo3's death, and it has reached a critical stage. Multiple court dates have come and gone. Filings have revealed the breadth of the prosecution's witness list. And now the proceedings are moving toward the moment when all of that evidence, all of those witnesses, all of that documented history gets presented to a jury that will ultimately decide Yella Beezy's fate. That is the stage we are at. And that is why what Rainwater is saying right now carries the weight that it does. Now, before we get into what Rainwater revealed, you need to understand who he actually is, because his perspective on this case does not come from the outside looking in. Rainwater was far more than a manager to Mo3. He was one of the rapper's closest business partners and most trusted confidants. He spent years helping navigate Mo3's career, sitting in rooms where decisions were made, handling situations that never made it to the public eye, and watching the tensions within the Dallas rap scene develop in real time. Behind Mo3's public persona as one of Dallas's most beloved artists, there was a world of ongoing conflict, shifting loyalties, and escalating pressure that ultimately led to the events investigators are now reconstructing in court. Rainwater was present for much of that. He saw the relationships form and fracture. He witnessed the disputes unfold. He understands the dynamics among the people at the center of this case in a way very few people can claim. That is exactly why the prosecution considers him one of their most valuable witnesses. And it is exactly why what he has to say about TrapBoy Freddy carries so much weight. But here's where it gets real. Rainwater is not just a witness in this case. He is a flashpoint. According to prosecutors, the violent feud that ultimately led to Mo3's death did not begin with Mo3 himself. It began with Rainwater. Investigators have pointed to a specific incident in January of 2020 in which Rainwater was allegedly assaulted by Yella Beezy outside a Dallas strip club as one of the key moments that ignited the chain of retaliatory conflict between these groups. That assault was significant enough that Rainwater later sued over it and was awarded $325,000 in damages. That's some real heavy weight right there. Think about what that means for a second. Mo3's own manager, someone operating on the business side of things, became the target of a physical attack that prosecutors are now presenting as a documented turning point in an escalating war. This was not music beef playing out in diss tracks. This was street-level violence that crossed into the inner circle around Mo3, and it set off a chain of retaliatory exchanges that stretched from that moment all the way to the highway where Mo3 was murdered. Let that sink in for a minute. The moment Yella Beezy allegedly put his hands on Rainwater, this conflict stopped being about music and started being about something much more dangerous. It became personal. It became physical. And in that world, when something becomes physical, the next steps follow a pattern that everybody inside that life already knows. You do not assault a man's manager and expect the situation to cool down. You light a fire. And prosecutors are going to walk that jury through every single thing that burned after that moment. Step by step, incident by incident. All the way to the night Mo3 never made it home. Rainwater takes the stand to establish that violent history for the jury. He is the person who can look those 12 people in the eye and say, this feud was real, it was physical, it was escalating, and I was inside it from the very beginning. So check it. That is the foundation of what Rainwater revealed when he broke down the prosecution strategy. He made clear that this case is not built around one dramatic piece of evidence or one eyewitness account. It is built on a timeline, a documented progression of events that prosecutors are presenting to the jury as proof that what happened to Mo3 on that highway was not spontaneous. It was the end result of a conflict that had been building for years, escalating through physical confrontations, retaliatory moves, and ultimately through alleged criminal planning that resulted in a paid hit. Rainwater's testimony provides the jury with the starting point of that timeline. His assault at the hands of Yella Beezy, as prosecutors frame it, is the match that lit the fuse. And everything that followed flows from that moment in the story the state is telling. Now let's talk about TrapBoy Freddy, because his role in all of this deserves a full breakdown. In the Dallas hip-hop community, TrapBoy Freddy is a well-known name. He built his career within the local rap scene and has maintained relationships across multiple circles in that world. He knows these artists. He knows how they move. He knows what they say in their music and what certain language actually means inside that specific community. And that is precisely why prosecutors named him in this case. Now, for those who might not understand how this works, let me explain. His involvement in this trial was not voluntary. Prosecutors identified him as someone with knowledge so specific and so essential to their case that they were not willing to build their argument without it. And the moment his name surfaced in connection with this trial, the street's been talking nonstop about what he knows and what he is going to say when he sits in that chair. The real kicker, though, is what TrapBoy Freddy's testimony is actually designed to do, because this is where the prosecution strategy gets both bold and complicated. One of the most explosive pieces of evidence in this case involves the music coming out of both camps. Prosecutors have pointed to tracks including Yella Beezy's own songs as well as TrapBoy Freddy's song, On Your Head, which contains lyrics about hiring people to kill for $50,000 as evidence of the bounty allegedly placed on Mo3's head. A Dallas judge has already ruled that these lyrics are admissible in front of the jury. Now in the hood, we know that rap music lives in a space where fiction and reality often blur, where artists exaggerate, where violent imagery is a creative tool. The defense is almost certainly going to stand up in that courtroom and argue exactly that. They are going to say, the music is art, that lyrics are not confessions, that holding a rapper accountable for what he puts on a record is a fundamental misreading of what hip-hop is and how it works. That argument has been used in courtrooms across this country, and it has worked before. But here's what makes the Yella Beezy trial different. Prosecutors did not bring in an outside expert to decode the music for the jury. They subpoenaed someone from inside the culture itself. TrapBoy Freddy's job on that stand is to provide the jury with the inside knowledge of rap group dynamics and the specific context of the music being used as evidence, and to testify that what is on those records is not just artistic expression but language that connects directly to the alleged crime. His testimony is designed to link Yella Beezy's lyrics to the murder for hire charge in a way that the defense cannot easily dismiss. And here is why that distinction matters so much. When a prosecutor brings in an academic or a law enforcement analyst to interpret rap lyrics for a jury, the defense can cross-examine that person and make them look like an outsider who does not truly understand the culture. They can argue that the interpretation is biased, that it is law enforcement trying to criminalize an art form it does not understand. But when the person sitting in that witness chair is someone who actually lived inside that world, who made music in that scene, who knows these artists and how they communicate, that argument falls apart. The defense cannot call TrapBoy Freddy an outsider. They cannot argue he does not understand the culture. All they can do is challenge his credibility and his motivations, and that is a much harder hill to climb. Real talk, that is one of the most significant prosecutorial moves in this entire trial. Because when someone from inside the Dallas rap scene, someone who understands how this music gets made and what certain words and references actually signal in that world, sits in front of a jury and tells them that what they are hearing goes beyond creativity into something much more specific, it changes the weight of that evidence entirely. It is no longer an outsider interpreting hip-hop for a courtroom. It is a peer, someone who ran in those circles, translating what the culture itself understood those lyrics to mean. That is a different kind of testimony. And it is exactly the kind of testimony that can make a jury reconsider everything they thought they knew about the difference between rap as art and rap as evidence. Now, this is where we have to address the bigger picture of what these two witnesses, Rainwater and TrapBoy Freddy, represent when you look at them side by side. Because Rainwater's revelation was not just about one person's role. It was about the architecture of the entire prosecution strategy. Rainwater establishes the why. He gives the jury the violent history, the personal conflict, the escalating physical confrontations that created the conditions for a murder for hire. TrapBoy Freddy establishes the connection. He helps the jury understand that Yella Beezy's music was not separate from the conflict, but was allegedly part of it. That the lyrics being presented as evidence are specific enough to function as communication about what was being planned and what was being rewarded. Together, they build the spine of the prosecution's case. One provides the motive rooted in years of documented beef. The other provides the bridge between the accused and the crime. Through the music he put into the world, the prosecution is betting that when a jury hears both of those things in sequence, the picture becomes impossible to ignore. But yo, this is where the story gets deeper than just this one trial. The decision to use rap lyrics as evidence in a capital murder for hire case is a move that carries implications far beyond the Dallas courthouse. This is a debate that has been raging across the legal and music worlds for years. Critics argue that treating hip-hop lyrics as literal confessions is dangerous, that it criminalizes an art form built on exaggeration, braggadocio, and the performance of toughness. They argue it disproportionately targets black artists and creates a legal standard that no other genre of music is held to. But prosecutors counter that when lyrics are specific enough, when they reference real people, real incidents, and real consequences that align with documented events, they cross the line from artistic expression into admissible evidence of intent. That debate is now being played out in front of a Dallas jury. And TrapBoy Freddy, taking that stand, is right in the middle of it whether he chose to be or not. The real tea that got everybody shook is how deeply this case cuts beneath the surface of what most people were paying attention to when Mo3 was first killed. When he was shot and killed on that highway in November of 2020, the immediate reaction from the hip-hop world was grief. He was beloved, he was talented, he was gone too soon. But as the investigation developed and as prosecutors began constructing their case, it became clear that the full story of what led to his death was far more layered and complex than any headline could capture. The breadth of the witness list, the depth of the timeline, the decision to use music as evidence, all of it reflects the true complexity of what investigators uncovered when they started pulling on the threads connecting the people at the center of this case. Rainwater's testimony is one thread. TrapBoy Freddy's testimony is another. And together, they are helping the prosecution weave a complete picture of a conflict that cost one of Dallas's most gifted artists his life. Now let's talk about what this means for Yella Beezy's defense, because that side of the courtroom is not sitting idle. Defense attorneys in a capital case like this are working against a prosecution strategy that is deliberately broad and deliberately layered. When the state brings in Rainwater to describe being physically assaulted by the defendant and ties that moment to a chain of events ending in a murder, they are asking the jury to feel the weight of that escalation personally. When they bring in TrapBoy Freddy to interpret lyrics as evidence of criminal intent, they are asking the jury to hear Yella Beezy's own music as a confession. The defense has to find a way to counter both of those moves without appearing to disrespect the memory of Mo3 in the process. That is an incredibly narrow road to walk, and the credibility of both Rainwater and TrapBoy Freddy is going to be challenged hard. Rainwater was personally assaulted by the defendant. He was the victim's manager. The defense will argue his testimony is driven by grief and personal loyalty rather than objective truth. TrapBoy Freddy's relationships and motivations within the Dallas rap scene will be questioned too. Every crack in a witness's credibility is an opportunity for reasonable doubt, and the defense is going to swing at every crack they can find. At the end of the day, Mo3's situation was never just about the moment a gunman pulled a trigger on a Dallas highway. It was about power, loyalty, retaliation, and the devastating consequences that follow when conflicts escalate without resolution. Rainwater lived inside that world. He watched those tensions build. He was personally caught in one of the incidents prosecutors are now presenting as the origin point of the entire feud. And when he explains why TrapBoy Freddy is testifying, he is not just explaining legal strategy. He is explaining the truth about how the world that surrounded Mo3 functioned and why understanding that world is the only way to truly understand what happened to him. The prosecution is betting that when the jury hears Rainwater describe the violence that sparked this conflict and then hears TrapBoy Freddy decode the music that allegedly signaled its deadliest chapter, the conclusion will be undeniable. So when you step back and look at everything Rainwater laid out, what you are really seeing is a prosecution that understood from the beginning that a capital murder for hire case rooted in rap scene conflict could not be won on physical evidence alone. The culture is too specific. The relationships are too layered. The music is too easy to dismiss without someone from the inside translating it for a jury that has never been part of that world. Rainwater gives them the history and the personal stakes. TrapBoy Freddy gives them the cultural context and the direct link between the lyrics and the alleged crime. Together, they give the prosecution something no amount of forensic evidence alone could ever provide, which is a human and culturally grounded explanation, rooted in lived experience for why a man is sitting in that Dallas courtroom facing a capital murder charge. That is what Rainwater revealed. That is what TrapBoy Freddy's subpoena means. And that is why this testimony, out of everything happening in this trial, is the piece that could determine which way that jury goes when it is finally time to deliver a verdict. What are your thoughts on TrapBoy Freddy's role as a state witness, and what his testimony could mean for the direction of this trial? Drop your take in the comments below and make sure you tap on the content on screen for more coverage of one of the most significant cases in recent hip-hop history. We are going to stay on this every step of the way, so make sure you are locked in because this trial is far from over. And look, before we close this out completely, let us take one more step back and really appreciate the full magnitude of what Rainwater's revelation tells us about where this trial stands right now. Because what he is describing is not just a legal strategy, it is a statement about the value of Mo3's life and the lives of everyone whose world was disrupted by the violence that took him. Prosecutors are investing enormous resources into making sure this jury understands every dimension of what happened. They are calling witnesses from across the Dallas rap scene. They are presenting a timeline that spans years. They are introducing music into evidence and asking an artist from inside that world to help decode it for 12 people who may have never encountered any of this before. They are asking the jury to hold in their minds a complex picture of relationships, rivalries, incidents, and alleged intent, and to understand how all of those things combine to produce one irreversible outcome on a Dallas highway. That kind of commitment from a prosecution is rare, and Rainwater's ongoing involvement in helping the public understand what is happening in that courtroom is its own kind of testimony to how seriously the people closest to Mo3 are taking this moment. TrapBoy Freddy taking that stand is not a footnote in this trial. It is a chapter that connects the music to the murder and gives the jury the cultural translation they need to understand what prosecutors are alleging. Yella Beezy put into his lyrics. And according to Rainwater, that chapter connects directly to the prosecution's core argument that what happened to Mo3 was the result of a deliberate pattern of escalating conflict and deliberate criminal planning, not an isolated act with no broader context. Every witness who testifies to a piece of that pattern makes the prosecution's argument stronger. Every voice that helps the jury understand the world Mo3 was navigating in the final years of his life brings the full truth of this case closer to the surface. And Rainwater, speaking from a position of genuine inside knowledge, wants people following this trial to understand that what is happening in that courtroom right now is bigger than any one name, any one piece of testimony, or any one moment. It is the entire story of a conflict that cost one of Dallas's most gifted artists his life. And as Rainwater sees it, the jury is going to hear all of it before this trial reaches its conclusion. Now, for those of you who have been keeping up with this case since the beginning, you already know that every hearing, every filing, and every court date has added a new layer to a story that started on that Dallas highway and has been unraveling in public ever since. The prosecution has not rushed this. They have been deliberate. They have been strategic. And what Rainwater's revelation makes clear is that the witnesses they have chosen to call are not random. Each one was selected because they fill a specific gap in the story the state needs the jury to understand. Rainwater fills the gap around the origin of the violence and the personal nature of the feud. TrapBoy Freddy fills the gap around the music and what it communicates to someone with real knowledge of the culture. Other witnesses fill other gaps, and when all of those pieces come together in that courtroom, the prosecution is betting that what the jury sees is not a collection of individual accounts, but a single coherent picture pointing in one direction. And fam, let's not overlook what it actually means for TrapBoy Freddy to be put in this position. He did not volunteer for this. He was named in this case by prosecutors, pulled into a capital murder for hire trial involving people from his own scene, his own community, his own world. That is a weight no one prepares you for. And the fact that prosecutors identified him by name and connected him directly to the evidence tells you everything you need to know about how essential they believe his specific knowledge is to the case they are building. They were not willing to leave that cultural translation job to anyone else. They needed someone who had actually been inside that world, who understood the music from the inside out, and whose credibility with the jury would hold up under cross-examination from a defense team that is going to come at him with everything they have. That is the position TrapBoy Freddy is in, and how he handles it, what he says on that stand, and how he says it is going to matter enormously for how this trial unfolds. At the end of the day, Mo3 deserved better than what happened to him on that highway. The people closest to him are making sure his story gets told in the only place that matters right now, inside that courtroom, in front of that jury. What are your thoughts on TrapBoy Freddy taking that stand? Drop your comments below, tap the notification bell, and stay locked in because this trial is far from over.